Data-driven digital agriculture webinar series. And this series, we invite thought leaders, innovators, startup founders, uh, data companies, technology companies, and World Bank and IFC teams, which are investing and designing programs for supporting data-driven digital agriculture in our operations and analytical work. And this is a platform, it's a global platform in which a lot of people from all over the world join in. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is the 62nd webinar in this series. I think we have hosted a number of very interesting innovators in this series. This series is available on our digital agriculture website and also on the Open Learning Campus platform. And I would request someone to put a link to that at some stage. Yeah, that's there now. And through this, you can access all the 62 webinars and other series all over the world at any point of the time. So we have about 8,000, more than 8,000 people accessing this material even after the webinar is over. Sometimes people are not able to attend because of preoccupations, but I would encourage you to go and visit this site and see and take advantage of this global knowledge source there. Now, coming back to today's event, just some ground rules. Please keep your microphone on mute to prevent any background noise. And just to let you know that there will be a Q&A session after the presentations. So please do not interrupt the speakers while they're presenting. Please type your questions for the individual speaker in the chat window, and we will harvest your questions in the chat. I will take the questions, cluster them, and put them to all the participants so that they are able to respond to your questions. I would also encourage the speakers to look at the chat window, and if there are factual questions and clarifications and some context they're trying to establish, please respond in the chat, because the chat window generally remains very active in these webinars, and the purpose is to enable people to talk to each other and network in the virtual world. And we will, but I'm promising that we'll take your questions in the end, basically there. Now, coming to today's webinar, very exciting topic. We are looking at the platforms in Nigeria, which have enabled access to capital, improved production, aggregation, and trade for smallholder farms. And we have two very exciting initiatives and solutions from Nigeria today, which have been being implemented for some time. We have Babban Gona, which is really using this platform to create jobs for youth and making farming profitable. And they are really trying to use the digital platform and technology to serve a number of smallholders across Nigeria. And I think recently, I think they also just got a funding from Citibank to scale up their work in Nigeria. They also have a Women Economic Development Initiative, which supports rural women to establish businesses and access education, training, financing, and inputs. We also have AFEX. AFEX is one of the exciting innovations coming from Africa, which harnesses Africa's commodities and talents. And they are trying to develop a commodity exchange model for West African market and really impact 1 million producers over a period of time to develop an efficient market system and bring in the inter-Africa trade, which is quite huge but has not been exploited as a developmental opportunity. They also work on de-risking, financial inclusion, and develop technology for data collection, market access, and capital. So now I will introduce the panelists. They will talk for about 20 minutes each, and then we have a very rich set of discussants whom I will introduce as they come. Basically, very Benedict, Oltisa, Olitsa. I think we have a very rich panel here, and then we'll run through a panel discussion there. So it's my great pleasure to invite Akin Yinka Akin Tunde, who's the Chief Operating Officer for AFEX, and he is responsible for a number of issues: people, strategy, voice, and profitability in AFEX. He's responsible for integrating business units, talents, and strategy execution, and run the organization, the operations of the organization. He also leads the firm's endeavor to leverage technology to transform agriculture in Nigeria. And he has played an important role in scaling up end-to-end business execution and bringing technology to the solution there. And he's an MBA and also has a certificate in corporate innovation from Stanford Graduate School. Over to you, Akinka.
Thank you very much, Pamesh. I'm really glad to be here and really happy to be partaking in this What's Cooking webinar series. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. I'm glad to be here with you. I also want to thank the team at World Bank for giving us this opportunity to share our innovative solution and our approach to improving the livelihood of smallholder farmers across Nigeria and indeed across Africa. Today, over the next 20 minutes, we'll be talking through how we're changing the narrative of agricultural financing, leveraging our products on innovative technology. And we'll be taking an interesting approach here where we will be sharing a very, very short story of two farmers, one that we call Farmer John and the other one Farmer Amisu. We'll walk you through the challenges they face, their point of view, how they experience these challenges, and the solution that AFEX takes them through. After that, we'll now run through quickly our business model, how we're scaling, and the possibility, how we've scaled across the country, and our plans to further much more scale the business across Africa. So if you go to the next slide, let's start. So Farmer John is a rice farmer that you typically find across Africa. We're using Nigeria as a case study now. Farmer John is one of the many farmers. If you look at the data and statistics that we have across Nigeria, about 70% of the working population are smallholder farmers, and they all have the same or very, very typical profile, which is they usually have small land to farm with little or no access to capital. But in this case, Farmer John farms rice, and every day he believes in the work that he sets out to do. In Nigeria, farming and indeed agricultural activities contributes over 20% to the GDP, which shows how important the little activity that John carries on to the whole economy on an aggregate level. Now, he believes farming is good because it's what he's been handed down to his farmer. From his father and his father's father. He has a piece of land, small land that he cultivates year in, year out. It's a monoseasonal farming, which means it farms only once in a year. And in a good year where the weather and the infrastructure works, he could even partake in irrigation farming. But he has a couple of problems that he faces in his farming activity. The next slide shows a couple of problems, right? The farming activity he's been doing has not made him rich at all. So he's been living from one poverty cycle to another. 1 hectare of land that yields 1.5% tons every season, which is like 40 to 60% below global averages. And the question he wakes up to ask himself every day is how he could produce more from this piece of land that he has. And the next slide now speaks about the various problems that he faces, right? He has little or no access to credit facilities. He has little or no access to insurance. And in fact, he is actually unbanked because there are no financial service providers around where he lives and where he carries out his farming activities. And all these issues are not due to any fault of his because across Nigeria and in fact across Africa, there are lots of infrastructural gap across the businesses that makes it difficult for smallholder farmers in remote locations where bulk of these farming activities are carried out have access to it. Less than 40% of the farming population have access to financial services that could actually enjoy good structured financing products from financial institutions. With all these problems, it's very, very difficult for John to have access to quality inputs to carry out his farming activity. And as we mentioned earlier, right, he farms just a hectare of land and his yield is 1.5 tons on the average on an annual basis. And for him to grow this, he will need a couple of things. The first will be access to quality inputs in a timely manner, keywords being access and timely manner, and then the other one will now be access to financing to be able to carry out his activities at a cheap and affordable cost. All these are missing from all these are things that he doesn't have access to at the moment, and which, given the appropriate access, will leverage him to be able to produce more and increase his productivity. The next slide now speaks about, even if he's able to produce on his land, another problem faces him: a lot of middlemen across the value chain, which prevents him from gaining direct access to markets. If you look at the value chain across Africa, there are a lot, in Nigeria in particular, there are a lot of middlemen that play across the value chain that makes it very, very difficult for the smallholder farmer who produces most of the value to capture this value in a reasonable quantity, right? Our numbers speaks to the fact that at the end of the day, with the numerous middlemen in the between the smallholder farmer and the final buyer of this commodity, between 30 and 40% of the final value actually gets to these smallholder farmers in terms of what it produces. Now, the question is, how do you provide a solution that solves all the problems faced by John in carrying out his business? Unfortunately for John, he has a friend called Amisu, which we're going to introduce on the next slide. Now, Amisu has been farming with AFEX for a couple of times. He encountered AFEX business model in the year 2016, and he's been able to enjoy all the services that John has not been able to have access to. Not just because banking, or in this case, farming with AFEX, is all rosy, but because he's been able to grow with the business since the time they started and has been able to position himself. The next slide now speaks about the value that is available for the farmers to enjoy when they bank with AFEX. Part of the key things that AFEX makes available for a smallholder farmers is access to inputs in a timely manner, because we believe that having access to quality inputs in a timely manner is of a high value to the smallholder farmers, as opposed to high cost of financing, which is the place most people miss it out. And it took us a while at AFEX to realize this as well. Yes, we work with farmers, but by engaging them cycle in, cycle out, year in, year out, we've been able to come to understand their needs in a very, very unique way. Access to inputs in a timely manner is one of the greatest requirements for smallholder farmers, which is closely followed by access to financing to access the smallholder farmers. And one of the things that AFEX has done is to ensure that we could securitize the process and make access to financing as seamless as possible by ensuring that getting access to quality inputs in a timely manner is not an hassle for the smallholder farmers. AFEX has ensured and invested a lot in warehouses that are close to where these farmers carry out their farming activities. And before the start of the season, we ensure that the inputs required by registered farmers on AFEX's platform are available and they could access it in a timely manner. And we now layer financing on top of this. Our warehouses also act as store of value for the smallholder farmers when they harvest their commodities. In a way, we are bringing the farmer closer to where the smallholder farmers are to ensure that they can get value and eliminate non-value adding middlemen across the value chain, which will further unlock about 40 to 50% additional value for the smallholder farmers. Layering this across a whole lot of services is one of the value that AFEX works on. And now the question is, how do we deliver this value to the smallholder farmers? And this lies on our business model, which I'm going to introduce briefly on the next page, on the next slide. Our business model relies on three key pillars. The first pillar is what we call the AFEX Fair Trade Limited, which is the company that is tasked with direct engagement with smallholder farmers. Now, the key thing here is, when engaging with smallholder farmers, We ensure that the first step is to ensure that we create a digital identity for them, leveraging on our innovative digital platform, which we call Workbench. Now, the Workbench platform not only creates a digital identity for the smallholder farmers, but it also profiles them and ensures that on the back of their digital identity, we can introduce additional financial services, being able to register them for the bank verification number, which is key for opening bank accounts, bringing the banks closer to them, leveraging on our services, and then being able to create a credit track record for the smallholder farmers, which will prime him for access to lower cost credits once he has a good credit rating over the years. AFTL, which is the first pillar, also ensures that the smallholder farmers are guaranteed quality and quantity of their produce anytime it's in our warehouses, also leveraging on our digital technology. The next entity, the next pillar here is one that ensures that financing comes on board, which we refer to as AFIL. AFIL securitizes products and ensures that we can raise capital from the market, financial markets and capital markets, and then structure the capital in such a way that we can direct it as loan and financing to the smallholder farmers. Over the years, a host of services and research and engagement has been done into the successful financing of smallholder farmers, but very few has been successful. At AFEX, because we work directly with the smallholder farmers and we handhold them through the whole process year in, year out, so we've been able to create a structure that ensures that we record 95% at the minimum recovery rate in terms of financing that we give to the farmer. And it's not because we're doing anything special, but because we've been able to put key structures in place to ensure that these loans don't go bad and we have it at the end of the day. Part of it is the fact that we work closely with the farmers. We have warehouses in the areas where they reside, so we're with them year in, year out. We also bring the market closer to them, and we also work with market prices at all points all through the year. With this structure in place, we've created a trust-based economy with the smallholder farmers, where they believe that if we can make this available to them all year round, then we can build a mutual relationship that seeks to increase the value that is accruable to the smallholder farmer every time across the year. Then we have the third pillar, which is the ACEL, which is the entity that ensures that we develop innovative products and we have structured trade solution that further unlocks value to the smallholder farmers across the entire value chain. Leveraging on these three pillars, we've been able to create a structure that has become one of the modus operandi that we're using to expand our business across the region. These entities and these pillars rely on our technology, our Workbench on one hand, that ensures that we could create an identity for the smallholder farmers, bring financing close to him, build credible credit records, and ensure that seamless transactions could be done with the smallholder farmers. And also on the back of that, our clearing and settlement, which is the payment to the smallholder farmers, works as seamless as possible based on the limits of the infrastructure we have in the markets. For example, any farmer that has a bank account is going to get his money anytime he trades through AFEX within 3 hours of the transaction. For farmers that don't have bank accounts that we're just profiling on the system, we have solutions in place that ensures that immediately the trade occurs with them, within 3 to 6 hours, they get money for the financing they've done and for the transaction they've done with AFEX. Now, this is the model we work with at AFEX, and we've proven the concept that the model is scalable not only in Nigeria but across Africa, where we piloted the AFTL angle of the business in Kenya last year, and we've seen similar response in the way the market has accepted the model, leveraging on our digital technology. The next slide speaks to the fact that across our business model, we have the capacity to scale the service offering from just a single farmer, John in this case, to any farmer that is engaged in farming activities across the country and across Africa as a whole. There are a couple of key initiatives that we are working with at AFEX to ensure that every smallholder farmers across the continent could benefit from the service we have that we're offering across. One of it is what we call the ASP initiative. The ASP initiative is one that seeks to ensure that we can create businesses that could replicate the service we operate at AFEX, where we don't have the physical capacity and physical presence to do that. So basically, we're empowering small businesses to be able to reach more smallholder farmers and create value at that level. And the key part of this ASP initiative is the fact that we are able to leverage our technology and support of the business to grow these smaller businesses across and link them directly to our platform for financing and access to markets, which are one of the key gaps we've seen. And then all these are also interwoven in creating access to quality inputs for the smallholder farmers at all points through this ASP network. We started this ASP initiative in 2021, and we started with about 20 businesses, and this year we are increasing that to 40, between 40 and 50 across board, with a potential to increase the numbers more over the next couple of years. The next initiative that we see that has the capacity to scale massively is one we call our Project Dawa. Project Dawa is an incentive that seeks to link smallholder farmers directly to markets where smaller processors of commodities and poultry farmers could also have access to the market as well, without having to be hurt in their business processes. So imagine a small poultry farmer that is in a remote part of the country that needs access to the commodities being produced by these farmers. Our Project Dawa seeks to put the infrastructure required in place to ensure that these niche markets and these smaller players could access the market directly without an incremental cost that they would have incurred in their producing activities. The next product that we have there is what we call the asset-backed commercial paper, which seeks to achieve two things on two fronts. The first is to ensure that smallholder farmers can get their financing in a timely manner, as we previously mentioned. And then secondly, producers of commodities on large scale can also unlock financing to drive their production activities. Across the agricultural ecosystem, there are lots of external factors at the macro level, which we have little control on, but we have to work within the constraint of. So putting a structure in place that ensures that financing is available for all players across the ecosystem will greatly aid this, which is one of the things that battered the asset-backed commercial paper. On a broader scale, one of the core activities we are working with at AFEX is promoting food security, both for Nigeria and Africa. And this is what underpins all our activities and the operations we carry out on board. The food security program that we're working with seeks to ensure that smallholder farmers like John and Amisu could increase their productivity. By increasing their productivity, they get more value that accrues to them. When they get more value accruing to them, they get to cultivate larger land spaces because they have more. And by increasing their production capacity, they get to increase their productivity as well. And over a 2 to 5 year period, we believe that you can take a small farmer like John from 1.5 hectare in cultivation to 3 to 5 hectare in annual cultivation. And when farmers have access to grow to this value, then you have higher food security concerns elimination, which ensures that the food security of the continent is in place, and then we can grow the value for the business and for the whole market on the back of that. We've started this model in a couple of instances, and we believe that with the right numbers and the right scale, we can get to scale it across markets that we're looking at playing across. One of the ways we've scaled massively on this business is highlighted in the last slide that I'll be presenting, which shows the distribution of all our warehouses and indeed our farmer network across the country. The next slide shows our warehouses, where they are across Nigeria. Can we go to the next one, please? Next slide shows our warehouses and where we have them across the country. And this is something that was achieved over a 5-year period. And it's based on the model of proximity to smallholder farmers, creating a viable solution where quality and quantity of inputs that are traded and quality and quantity of inputs, commodities that are traded on the platform is made available to the smallholder farmers. Like I mentioned as well earlier, we started the business in Kenya and we're replicating the business across other countries across Africa. And the belief is that when we have this scalable model that could reach smallholder farmers across, the continent, then we are much more certain of ensuring that the food security of the continent is in place, and we're poised as a continent to feed the world in the nearest future. AFEX currently has over 300 farmers on its network, all with digital identity on our mobile technology, with both online and offline function that ensures that no matter where the farmer is located, we have access to them, and we can create value and unlock additional value for them through the plethora of services and products that we have that they could binge on. Right now in Nigeria, we have over 136 warehouses serving these farmers across 23 states, with a combined storage capacity of 350,000 metric tons. So this is the story of AFEX and where we've come from, and the services and value we've put in place to drive our business model. Over the next years, we'll be putting in more structures in place across Africa to grow the business. And the results and the target has always been to ensure that across Africa, we can secure the food security agenda of the continent and ensure that we set the continent in place to feed the world in the nearest future. Thank you very much for your time. Parmesh, your system is muted.
Okay, thanks a lot, Akinka, for a very good presentation and giving us the complete overview of what kind of solution AFEX is offering. It's very comprehensive because you are also innovating financial innovations,
Absolutely.
and also technology innovations and business innovations and going backward integration and forward integration. So it's quite a complex model. But I think you explained quite well on how this is there. And I think we have a lot of colleagues from our financial sector also joining in, and I want to acknowledge Panos, who is our global lead at IFC and the bank on IFC, and he has led a number of very innovative agricultural finance initiatives there. And so hope we'll have a conversation on this as we go forward there. And so I will now shift to the second presenter. And I would also request people to start asking questions for Akinka and AFEX on the chat, because that will allow us to have a good discussion at the end. Akinka, there are some factual questions people are asking you. If you can answer them through the chat, it would be good. So
yeah, definitely we'll do that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Next presenter is Ubong Inyan, who is heads the whole partnerships division at Babban Gona. He's an experienced corporate finance legal professional. He's worked in private sector. He leads the development of strategic relationships and partnerships and social enterprises that support more than 80,000 smallholder farmers in Nigeria with access to finance, training, harvest, and post-harvest support. He designs and leads the execution of innovative and large strategic projects, and he has an MBA and a degree in international business law from Business School in Madrid, Spain. Over to you, Ubong.
Currently on mute, Ubong.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Dr. Parmesh, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Good afternoon to everyone who's made out the time to join us here today. I will be, over the course of the next 15-20 minutes, I will be sharing more with the audience about Babban Gona and our work here in Nigeria. I'm trying to share my screen. If you could assist with that, please.
Even if it doesn't work at Ubong's end, then can we share it from our side?
Yes. Yes. We have Alwyn on standby to share the slides.
So go ahead, Ubong. I think you let Alwyn know then when you want to change the slides. You please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I mean, I think for our all purpose and intents, I think our presentation is really more tailored to um, sharing our journey as a company, as a social enterprise, and really talking more about how Babban Gona uses technology to serve and help smallholder farmers across Nigeria. So could you go on to the third slide? Oh, sorry, the next one. Right. So at Babban Gona, our vision is we believe that everyone deserves a secure future, and to secure this future, we believe that we must end insecurity, which is something that we see as a major crisis to the entire region. And to do this, we believe that we must make smallholder farmers more money as they account for over 70% of the work population. Our vision at the end of the day is to be the Earth's highest impact business. We do this driven by 6 core values, placing our members first, being committed to their welfare, being focused on our mission, continuously improving our service offerings, and learning from within and outside the industry, and always maintaining the trust of our farmers. Next slide, please. So Babban Gona started its operations in 2010. We started with 20 farmers cultivating 100 hectares, and over the last 10 to 12 years, we've grown to be one of the single largest producers of maize in West Africa. Cumulatively, we've distributed loans to over 220,000 smallholder farmers, and we've been able to maintain a repayment rate of over 99% on the loans that we distribute to farmers. And we've been able to do this over the years through the support of numerous partners, locally and internationally, such as Mastercard Foundation, KfW, FMO, the European Development Finance Institution, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, NSIA, and a host of other partners. Next slide, please. Next. Over the past decade, we've been able to create significant impact with the farmers that we worked with. On the average Babban Gona farmer has a yield which is twice the national average, generating incomes twice the national average, and we've been able to distribute over $140 million in commercial loans to farmers, maintaining a 99% repayment rate by these farmers. And the business has proven to be profitable since inception. And over the last 5 years, we've maintained net positive income. So essentially, we've been able to build a profitable and sustainable model in serving an underserved part of the economy. As you would know, as the last speaker did mention, agriculture contributes close to 30% of Nigeria's GDP. However, commercial debt to the sector stands at less than 5%. And so for us at Babban Gona, being able to bridge this gap and create a funnel through which commercial debt can be made available to smallholders is a critical part of what we've been able to do over the years. Next slide, please. Next couple of slides. And this is just a snapshot of some of the partners that we've worked with over the years, and we currently are still working with, including the Central Bank, IFAD, the Mastercard Foundation, and to mention a few. Next slide. And these are some of the noteworthy media mentions that we've had over the couple of years. Next slide, please. Next. And so I would like to just take a minute here and just talk about why we do what we do here at Babban Gona. We believe that as oxygen is to fire, so is youth and employment to security. And over the years, we've seen not one, not two, but three major uprisings leading to massive destruction of lives and property across the country. Next slide, please. And in the last 20 years, over 20 million youth have entered the workforce. and employment numbers have also not reflected this, which is why currently in Nigeria, for example, youth unemployment stands close somewhere over 40%. Next slide, please. Sorry, over 60%. Please, could you go on to the next slide? Next slide, please. And yeah, so this is in Nigeria, the average youth age stands around 18 years. And so you see a situation where you have a very young, thriving population, but lack of sustainable and economically viable opportunities for them, which is really the field that we see in the country driving this insecurity. Could you go on to the next slide? And so for us at Babban Gona, we believe that the solution to dealing with this issue of insecurity is agriculture, particularly because agriculture provides the opportunity to create low-skill jobs for millions of people. And so we see agriculture as Nigeria's job creation engine. Can you go on to the next slide, please? And so I'd like to show you a bit more of what we do in Babban Gona and how our model works. And so essentially what we do, we provide to farmers a holistic range of services, training and education. The goal here is to move farmers away from having a subsistence mindset to a more commercial focused approach to farming. And we do this by providing them with credit, financial credit, providing them with high quality agricultural inputs, and we provide them with harvesting and marketing services. And so we take our farmers from ground zero and take them through the entire production process, helping them, teaching them how to improve their farming practices, providing agricultural extension services to these farmers, providing them with the right type of inputs that can help them withstand shocks in climate change, providing them with drought resistances, providing them with agrochemicals and other things that are friendly to the environment. After that, we also provide them with harvesting services and marketing services, ensuring that we're able to cut out middlemen and link our farmers directly to end users. Within our agricultural franchise model, we have two main programs. The first one is the Babban Gona Direct program, where we recruit farmers directly into the BG framework. And secondly, there's the Trust Group Entrepreneurship program, which is really where we've been able to train and move farmers from owning their farms, but to a point where they begin to run a mini Babban Gona franchise model, where Babban Gona provides them with the tools and the services that they need to go into their own communities and begin to serve smallholder farmers within their communities. So essentially, they become a mini Babban Gona within their community, providing access to finance, providing access to storage, providing access to trainings for farmers within their own communities. Next slide, please. Currently, we operate in in 16 states across Nigeria. The states marked in blue, those are the states where we have presence. 31 hubs with over 3,000 team members working along the lines of logistics, working directly within the smallholder partnership program, that is as extension workers working with the farmers. And we have a large inventory control system, ensuring the smooth distribution of goods and services across all these locations, and ensuring that the process involved in the distribution of these inputs and also the movement of grains from production centers down to the end users is done seamlessly. Next slide, please. We're working with over 3,000 members. We currently have the largest fleet of motorbikes in Nigeria, because most of our farmers operate in rural areas where access typically road infrastructure is really poor. Currently, we have over 100,000 metric ton grain storage capacity, and distributing inputs from over 2,300 locations in the country. Next slide, please. So the question now is, how are we able to scale and support the size of our operations? We've been able to do this through the creation of tools internally that we have deployed to digitize our entire operations on the field and off the field. So we've created business support tools for farmer recruitment and farmer service management. We've also created tools to support farmer field management. So these are tools that we developed using AI and machine learning decision tools to help our farmers determine the rate of germination on their field and also soil health on these fields. And also these tools help farmers to identify challenges that they might have on their fields and the sort of responses that they need to provide at the same time. To support the scale of our operations, we've been able to develop logistics and inventory support tools that ensure the seamless movement of goods across our entire scale of operations. Next slide, please. And so just to give you a sense of the complexity and the size of produce that we need, not just produce now, but also farm inputs that we need to move. You can imagine 15 ocean liners of product in and around 100,000 plus farms every season. And next slide. And so what are some of the challenges that we've experienced within Babban Gona and what we see obtainable in the larger ecosystem? Within Nigeria's Agtech ecosystem, we note that there have been a number of new creations in the last couple of years. So you see ag biotech firms coming up, working. We have institutions like IITA and companies like Harvestfield that have played a role in creation of AflaSafe, which is a bio control for aflatoxins in maize and also applicable for cashew nut. We see the creation of farm management software from companies like Dufma, and then there are companies that play in the robotics and mechanization space like Hello Tractors, supply chain companies like Capture Solutions and AgriApp, and ag crowdfunding platforms like FarmCrowdy and Thrive Agri. And we believe that there are other opportunities in this space because surely because of the scale and the size of the problem that needs to be solved, right? So there's still more room for supply chain technologies to be developed to really help with the distribution of inputs and the movement of grains. And that's what companies like AFEX is also working on. There's also the need for farm management software, particularly when you see, particularly in the south of Nigeria, where you have young, more learned agri entrepreneurs setting up their own farms, but lacking some of that traditional skill and the ability to actually go away for a time to go somewhere to go and learn. We believe that with the right type of tools and software, these people can set up their own farms and manage those farms remotely. And so we think that other areas for improvement would also still be in space of biotech, vertical farming, and farm-to-table platforms, ensuring that produce comes out from the farms and ends up in the shelves where they're needed. Key stakeholders that we see within the space are smallholders for one, startups that are developing and working within the space, technology companies, government, financial institutions, research institutions, and other agri businesses in the space. Next slide. And so in our experience, some of the challenges that we see is that because as owing to our skill, we do get the opportunity to work with a number of partners and companies that are seeking to provide solutions to smallholder farmers. But oftentimes we do see obstacles in the applicability of these solutions, either because of the pricing. So a product is priced at a point which is pretty much unaffordable for a smallholder farmer who's generating an income of somewhere around $1,000 a year. Some of these Agtech businesses also don't have a clearly defined path to scaling the business, most times because of the lack of accessibility to the farmers to whom they want to sell their products. Other times we see that there's a poor product market fit, in the sense that sometimes the market isn't ready for the product, or other times the product that is being offered is maybe probably too advanced for use for the smallholder farmer. Oftentimes that's due to literacy concerns and low levels of literacy and low levels of digital literacy. In terms of infrastructure, we do see that there's poor communications infrastructure in rural areas. So while mobile penetration is on the increase, but you find out that when you go into these communities to work, there's usually very poor connectivity, and in some locations, it's a challenge for the telecoms companies to set up masts there, either because it's not viable for them, or maybe because state level taxes are really high to install masts in those areas. And also there's the issue around poor road networks linking many farming communities to open markets. Within the ecosystem, we do sense a lack of collaboration between stakeholders and different players, and also poor access to farmer networks. And so we believe that an institution like the World Bank can look at facilitating development of the larger ecosystem to support that cross-sharing of knowledge and ideas. Can look at also putting together innovation funds to support Agtech ventures that are looking to deploy solutions in the market. Basically, the type of capital that can sort of can help them absorb the risk of trying and starting. You can also look at providing like technical assistance to startups that are coming up with innovative solutions to support the Agtech ecosystem, and also facilitate rural access program for farming communities. For government, and a lot of this is also something that the government in Nigeria can also work on, which is providing risk-free capital to support innovations with potential for businesses with potential, looking at accelerators and innovation hubs and venture funding. In the past, there have been such programs, but they haven't really been tailored to the sector. And so that's something that should be considered. The key thing there is also investment in rural infrastructure, particularly providing road networks to from farming communities to markets, providing tax incentives to companies that are willing to go into rural areas and invest in those areas. That would also be an incentive. And finally, to invest in basic education, because ultimately, the levels of literacy also play a significant role in the degree to which farmers or smallholders can adopt the technology solutions that are available to them. So I think for us, I think this is pretty much our own take on what is currently available on ground and how we can work together to move things forward. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ubong, and for sharing Babban Gona's vast experience and your takes on what that tech system is facing in Nigeria, and taking a more sectoral view there of the whole sector there. So we appreciate your presentation and ideas there, and also suggesting areas for World Bank intervention as well. That is very helpful. I will now move over to the discussants. We are running a little bit short of time, so I would request you to stay with the 5-minute intervention now, because it's basically you can comment on the two innovators, what they are doing, and plus also your own perspective from what you are doing in your own institutions as well on the Nigerian ecosystem as well. So I want to now invite our first discussant right now, very, very illustrious background, Benedict Egbo. He's with Central Bank of Nigeria for last 18 years. He's currently heads the Annual Commodities Office and the Development Finance Department of Central Bank of Nigeria, where he oversees administration of banks funding interventions towards commodities. He's also the team lead of the Maize Commodity Working Group. He has an MBA from the Obafemi Awolowo University and a Bachelor of Agriculture degree in crop production and soil science. He is a certified expert on agricultural finance from Frankfurt School of Finance and Management, a certified enterprise risk management professional, and also fellow of Chartered Institute of Loan and Risk Management of Nigeria. Over to you, Benedict. 5 minutes on your perspective.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pamesh, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining this webinar from. Thank you for the brief introduction, and I'd like to also appreciate the presenters, AFEX and Babban Gona, very lucid presentations there. Basically, I'll just talk about our relationship with them and what we have also done in the Agtech space and fintech space and generally the value chain. Our relationship in the Central Bank of Nigeria with both of them, AFEX and Babban Gona, started with the Anchor Borrowers program, which Babban Gona joined in 2017, while AFEX also came into the program in 2020. The Anchor Borrowers program is basically one of CBN's interventions that is aimed at linking smallholder farmers to anchor companies or processors, so to speak. The program was launched in 2015, and so far to date, we have been able to fund over 4.2 million farmers through deposit money banks and also through prime anchors like Babban Gona and AFEX to cultivate over 5.4 million hectares. The ABP and the that's the acronym for it, the Anchor Borrowers program, and the agricultural ecosystem generally involves the deployment of technology. And to handle these aspects, the Development Finance Department of the Central Bank of Nigeria, collaborating with our Information Technology Department, came up with what we call the DFD portal. It's actually a robust database of farmers' information. The Anchor Borrowers program has some key objectives, and in the value chain, we have to deploy some of this technology. And when we're talking about a linkage, we need to talk about the productivity of the farmers to increase that, to provide them also access to markets, that is, as the anchor companies are taking this output from them. We also, in that area, also improve capacity utilization of these processors, and again, get these smallholder farmers into the formal financial system, form of financial inclusion for those who have been excluded from the financial system. During this process, we have what we call farmer onboarding. So we have service providers who do the onboarding, and this information, which includes the farmers' biodata, the BVN, just like Akin mentioned, account, their address, and all that, the farm coordinates, all that are taken, and they are also in our database. This helps in terms of monitoring when we have our end-to-end M&E to monitor right from the beginning when inputs are given out to these farmers and up to the end where harvest and aggregation is done. That has really helped in terms of a recovery. We also have service providers who use digital satellite imagery to monitor these fields and to know how they're doing and all that. So yes, in terms of technology, we have other interventions where we get those who are in the tech space and want to leverage on these to provide services. Outside the ABP, we have other interventions also that we can fund them. Generally, our interventions under the CBN, it's just targeted at job creation, access to finance, economic diversification, and general and inclusive growth. So the agri sector is one of the key areas where we focus on. We also do interventions around M&Es, manufacturing, energy and infrastructure, and health. So there are enormous potentials in agriculture, yes, but we know one of the key issues has to circle around access to finance. So we try to play in that area. You cannot take out technology at all, because the agricultural space and the world generally, there's digital finance and the technology. This provides interesting opportunities, to catalyze development for the fintechs and the agrotechs and other stakeholders that are also in the field, and they can do this and also provide innovative solutions that we can explore together along with the likes of AFEX and Babban Gona to deliver additional value along the existing solutions that have been created. I will like to round up by saying that the CBN again is open to more innovative solutions in our intervention programs, and will require more efficiency and access that can be created through the involvement of fintech companies, because currently our loan disbursement usually is through the commercial banks, that's deposit money banks and microfinance banks. Other fintech companies, when they develop their app properly, can be looked into, and this will help. We think will help to deepen access to finance, and then for the poor farmers in the rural areas, since they are closer to them where they are. So basically, this is the angle where I see it from. I'm open up to any other questions that may arise. For the sake of time, I think I have done slightly above my 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Benedict. And I think giving the perspective of Central Bank of Nigeria and really showing how open you are to lots of ideas and innovations coming into the banking system, and I think creating that platform which allows these innovators to work on the fintech and the financial services and range of services there. So we look forward to also interacting with you later also on these issues there. Thanks a lot. So I would now bring in the second discussant, Ode Sowege. I hope I'm pronouncing you correctly. She's a senior portfolio officer for EDFI Agrif. It's the Agriculture Financing Initiative, which is funded by European Union and managed by EDFI Management Company on behalf of 15 European development finance institutions. Ode is in charge of this portfolio, and she supports sustainable and inclusive agriculture value chains based on Agrif's financial, social, and environmental objectives. She is also director of the Fair Trade Access Fund. She has more than 20 years experience in these agriculture investments in both private and public sector. She also worked as an investment officer for the French Development Finance Institution. And so Ode holds a Master's of Economics in Sanity. So over to you, Ode, for your 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Parmesh, for the introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Very glad to be here today and give the point of view of investor, namely Agrifi, being one of Babban Gona's numerous investors. So Agrifi, you mentioned it, Parmesh, is an impact investment facility funded by the European Union and managed by a company set up by the European Development Finance Institutions. Agrifi invests in sustainable agriculture projects, mainly in Africa, and selecting projects with high impact on smallholders. And to do so, and as the great presentations of the two presenters highlighted it, digitalization is an important dimension because promoting digital solutions can improve productivity, quality, but also timely access to market, to inputs, to information, so on and so forth. So Agrifi invests in such company, but it also intends through its investments to catalyze more investments in this company and in the sustainable agricultural value chains. Now, more specifically in Nigeria, So Agrify has already invested in Babban Gona and is willing to support more company in the future as soon as such company meets our investments and impact criteria benefiting smallholder farmers. Important to say that such kind of investments in sustainable agri-value chain in Nigeria perfectly fits with the priority of the European Union-Nigeria partnerships related to sustainable agriculture, which is to develop climate-smart agriculture and sustainable transformation of the agri-SMEs. And so for that reason, like in other sectors, digitalization is key within this European Union-Nigeria partnerships, especially because it gives huge potential for job creation, especially for the younger people. Now, diving into our experience as impact investors for Babban Gona, why did Agrify decided to invest in Babban Gona? Well, of course, it's due to the impact very well presented by Ubong on the smallholder farmers, but also the scalability of the model. And to support the growth of the company, we concretely played our part as catalyzing more investments because we provided long-term subordinated loan to Babban Gona. And so through that, it financed more working capital, so enabling to enroll more farmers. But beyond that, it also enabled to attract other senior lenders, so further grow Babban Gona's model, and so growing more employment, more farmers, and benefit more farmers, increasing their yields. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's the reason why, as impact investors, Agrify was very and is very interested in supporting business such as Babban Gona. I'll stop there. Happy to get the
Thanks a lot, Ade, and maybe we'll come to you later on. What do you see as the future prospects in other countries in West Africa? Because we are interested in building the ecosystem in West Africa. It'll be good to understand your perspective on also how we could work more closely with you in building the ecosystem there. So just I'll bring you into the discussion later on that question. Okay.
Thank you.
So, thanks a lot. I'm moving to the final discussant before we move to the audience questions, because I want to give some time for a round of questions from the audience as well. Very interesting questions have already come, and I hope we are able to do justice to them. Now, last but not least, Maxwell Olitsa, who is a country team leader at the International Fertilizer Development Center in Nigeria. He's been with IFDC for 10 years as agronomist and agribusiness partnership facilitator, and as country manager for the 2Scale program, which is considered one of the largest incubators for inclusive agribusiness in Africa, implemented jointly by IFDC, Bob Planck, and SME, funded by the Netherlands government, and works to scale 60 public-private partnerships for inclusive business in agri-food sectors and industries. So it is in 8 countries, including Nigeria, and covers around 375,000 hectares and 50 million euros in co-investment from private sector. Maxwell, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pamesh. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm calling in from Nairobi, Kenya, where To-Scale is celebrating our 10-year anniversary for promoting inclusive agribusiness in Africa. To-Scale, I'll focus on the To-Scale program and the relationship between To-Scale and AFEX. To-Scale is a program that uses public-private partnership approach to drive inclusive agribusiness, working with inclusive business champions such as AFEX, among others in the agri space in Nigeria and the other 10 countries To-Scale operating, to support the development of agribusiness clusters at the grassroots, which we believe is the foundation for pushing and promoting inclusion in the agricultural space in sub-Saharan Africa. While working with companies like AFEX, we try to do 2 things, using the PPP as an umbrella, where all the interventions are implemented, try to build these agribusiness clusters driven by AFEX and smallholder farmers, support core and supplier value chains development, and also support the local BOP market in terms of finding access to quality maize to consume. When we talk about innovations within two-scale and in the context of AFEX, we look at four major levels. One is at the input level, where you try to improve access and efficient use of input at farm level. You look at the production level, where you try to support smallholder farmers to find access to innovations that will improve their productivity at that level, talking about maybe weather information, advisory services in terms of promoting gaps, and all other best practices they need digitally. And you go to the processing level, where you need to organize the supply chain in a way that makes it more efficient, improve this transaction governance, and also reduce transaction costs across the entire value chain. And you look at the market as well, how you get to integrate smallholder farmers into a sustainable and structured market all year round, so that when there is a glut in the market, farmers have options. For instance, one of the tools AFEX uses is the COMEX. The COMEX platform is a digital trading platform where farmers are able to store their grains, warehouse their grains with AFEX for a period of time, and using the COMEX, are able to trade their gains when the prices are good for them and earn more in terms of income. Another tool that is of interest to us when we partnered with AFEX about a year ago is the workbench. This workbench is the supply chain monitoring tool for AFEX, where they use this to onboard farmers, especially farmers who are otherwise not bankable because they are not included in formal financial systems. They get this opportunity to not just partner or work with AFEX as customers, but also they use these accounts, these bank accounts that are created by AFEX, to also access other financial services in their local community outside the relationship they have with AFEX in the respective value chain they operate in. Many of the challenges that we see at the grassroots with regards to bringing innovations to solve these challenges are highlighted in the following areas. One, productivity issues. How do you improve smallholder farmers' productivity, and how does that productivity increase translate into additional income to the farmers? How AFEX does this, and also I'm sure Babban Gona does this, is organizing bulk purchase and bulk supply of input to smallholder farmers, where they use their input credit scheme to onboard farmers into the different digital tools they have, and farmers see a system that is more transparent in the sense that from the start they know what the price of the input are, and at the end of harvest they already know what they are going to pay in terms of reimbursing AFEX for the inputs they have supplied and the interest attached to that. So with that, you see there's more transparency in the value chain. Farmers are aware of how the need to build loyalty with AFEX becomes more important. But this is only managed using the digital tools that AFEX and even Babban Gona are deploying, and other actors in this space are deploying in the AFEX space. Another issue that these tools are addressing include access to quality inputs. Now, it's not just access to any other input, but quality input, which builds loyalty and also ensures that this issue around productivity and quality and post-harvest quality of grains are addressed in terms of ensuring food security, where we talk about safe and nutritious food being accessed by even the farmers who are producing this. The third aspect is high transaction costs. These tools we have seen have been able to reduce transaction costs in the value chains significantly, especially when we talk about transaction costs. We always look at the cost of input, especially fertilizers. This is one area that has plagued the agricultural system in Nigeria. Of course, in the value chain that AFEX and Babban Gona are leading, they will agree with me that fertilizer cost is one of the big challenges they have. And for smallholder farmers, if they are able to address this, you see smallholder farmers increasing productivity, expanding the area under production, and so on and so forth. The other issue, as I mentioned earlier, is transaction governance. There's a lot of transparency issues and business ethics issues in those value chains they drive. And using these technologies, they've been able to reduce this. They've been able to even at some point reduce the middlemen who cause problem in this value chain, just like Akin mentioned in his presentation earlier. Access to structured markets is also a challenge. You find out that smallholder farmers at harvest want to sell all they own or all they have produced at the beginning of the buying season, and this does not enable them make the best income. This is also connected to what Akin mentioned earlier. But with AFEX and with Babban Gona, especially with AFEX Comex platform and the workbench, they are able to provide security to farmers at harvest, that they store these grains with AFEX, and when the prices are good, farmers are able to sell. Last but not the least is capacity building and advisory services. This is key. We're talking about smallholder farmers. They need access to information. They need access to a lot of technical innovations that will enable them grow. And these companies have been able to do this or bring this to farmers in a cost-effective manner using the digital tools. One thing we drive very strongly in the partnership we have with our champion, especially with AFEX, is ownership. How do we build ownership in the sense that AFEX does not drive a partnership whereby there is power asymmetry in the value chain? But AFEX, using these digital tools, enable farmers to have access to information in a way that they are able to negotiate price, and they're able to negotiate the price of input and type of input they want at the beginning of the harvest season or at the beginning of the planting season. So these things come together and they make the value chains these actors drive to become more effective, more transparent, and more resilient in doing business with grassroots actors who will otherwise will not be in such value chain if the systems don't work. I think I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So this was very insightful, and you really brought in a lot of questions which were coming in, and you really gave an analytical perspective on these initiatives and what a kind of good perspective on how we should look at these, particularly about the role of the digital technologies. What is the value add coming in from the digital side? You talked about the transparency, you talked about the access to value chains and all the things there. I think very, very insightful, all the questions there. Yeah. So I would just raise one question and then I'll hand over to my colleague, Yvonne Pinto, who will lead the discussion with the panelists, the questions which are coming from the audience, because I have to leave at around 10:25. So the question I have for all the presenters is, what role do you see World Bank playing in terms of, supporting the Nigerian ecosystem to scale up what Babban Gona and AFEX are doing? What should we do as part of our policy work, analytics and investments to really make sure that these initiatives are going to scale faster and are not facing more pain points and all in the system? So that's the generic question from my side. And I'll hand over to Yvonne, my colleague, who has been orchestrating this whole webinar with all of you for a long time. And so Yvonne, over to you. And I will listen to the discussion, but I'll leave at 10:25. But please get back to us quickly, each of you, on what follow-up actions you require in terms of doing that. I really appreciate the audience questions also. And I'm very appreciative of the participants answering some of those questions in the chat. Over to you, Yvonne.
Thank you, Parmesh, and thank you. Let me guide that first question to Akin Yinka from AFEX Nigeria, and then we'll move on to Ubong, and then I would actually like to ask a couple of the discussants that question from Parmesh. Akin Yinka, over to you.
Thank you, Yvonne. So for us, we see this as more of creating a sustainable self-financing ecosystem for agricultural activities. With the changing global dynamics and the high cost of financing that is in the markets these days, we need to be innovative in the way we structure products that goes to the smallholder farmers. So our approach and the way we see the support of the World Bank in playing in this market is through what we mentioned earlier, food security fund. Please don't take it literally as a fund, but it's more like a food security structure that is designed to ensure that we can create a pool of funds that has several levels of guarantee and structure that ensures that first, we can lower the cost of capital that goes to the smallholder farmers. And secondly, we can now pull in capital market players, people that plays in the capital market, HNIs, wealth funds, investment banks, insurance companies to be able to invest in agriculture. In Nigeria and indeed across Africa, there are a pool of funds that are looking for alternative assets to invest in aside fixed income and equities, right? And agriculture is one of the most viable means that we see that a lot of people could invest in. At AFEX, we focus on creating a viable product that ensures that there's a clear cash to cash conversion cycle, meaning you bring in cash, it goes into commodities, it goes into agricultural financing, and we can clearly tie it back to cash at the end of the cycle. With the World Bank coming in to play a role in supporting this fund, either putting in, I don't know, you'll be in a better position to let us know the kind of financing and fund available, but we see a multi-tiered structure, more like a blended fund structure that the World Bank could key in to ensure that we can create a buffer to attract much more private capital into the pool of finance and agriculture in Nigeria and across Africa. And this is a concept that we've tested in the last couple of years, and we've proven to be successful. And which, if we get the World Bank invested in this, is going to massively scale the impact across Africa for smallholder farmers.
Thank you so much, Akinyinka. Ubong, over to you.
For us at Babban Gona, I think I would like to refer to what Art said concerning how EDFI support to Babban Gona in the provision of subordinated loans has helped us to unlock more senior debt, which I think the current ratio is around 1:3 or 1:4 now. I'm not too sure, but you can imagine that for an institution like the World Bank, facilitating access of capital to smallholders is pretty much the primary thing there, right? And helping that flow of commercial loans to smallholders. Organizations like Babban Gona, like AFEX, have built that skill and competency over time to de-risk this class of borrowers, and I think that's also very important. And then secondly, one of the reasons why we've been successful as a business in Babban Gona is because at the very early stages of the business, when we're still innovating with the idea of working with smallholder farmers, we did have the support of institutions that were willing to take on that risk, right? In the sense of providing that risk, that sort of patient capital. And now I'm not saying today. Now that was last year. We received the first private debt provided by IFAT, any private institution, as a first. And yes, while that is welcome, it took us 10 years to get to that point. And so there are many other businesses within the ecosystem that also have the competence and capacity to actually create results that would have significant impact on the economy. And it's really around creating a system to allow these guys come into play to foster and to grow them and to deploy those solutions. So I think for me that would be my contribution on the question.
Thank you so much, Ubong. I do want to just draw in our representative from the Central Bank of Nigeria, because very often the World Bank's initiatives are really in the provision of loans to their client governments. And so there are opportunities to essentially integrate actors like yourselves, Babban Gona and AFEX, and de-risk opportunities for their engagement and their scale. They don't generally provide finance in terms of investments directly, but they can provide support to client government institutions and indeed guarantees and indeed sandbox licenses and so on, and the legislation around those to sort of fast track opportunities for finance. What they can also do is to crowd in private investors of all different types, natures and sizes. And so I would like to hear from Mr. Agbo, the program that you provide as part of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Why are not other financial commercial institutions and banks providing that? What are their challenges? And I would also like to pull Ord into the conversation because it would be interesting to hear from you. Where are there opportunities to play in that patient space? Who are the types of actors who are able to complement the sort of support you provide? How does the World Bank facilitate that, energize that, whether it be policy interventions or support or otherwise? Mr. Agbo, over to you first, please.
Okay, thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, basically, from the angle which you have come, yes, we can definitely deepen the support of some farmers. In terms of the participation of the other financial institutions and let me call them deposit money banks and that, the areas we have seen complaints from these smallholder farmers are collateral areas, and to find solutions to that, to at least ameliorate that area, the CBN came up with the National Collateral Registry, where you can actually use your movable collateral. That also we are still talking with the banks to go and use that avenue to be able to give out these facilities to the farmers and increase their productivity. Also, if we want to talk about other challenges that these farmers face, the drudgery of agriculture in the country is still on the high side. We need to look at areas where we can increase mechanization. Research has shown that our mechanization in country is still about 0.27, just slightly below 0.3 horsepower per hectare. That is to say, a farmer, for 10,000 hectares in country here, we can only access like 6 tractors. That is way below the global recommended average of about 1.5 horsepower. We have countries that are doing way above that. So, and in all we're doing in CBN is just outside our core mandate, we are using the development finance interventions to be able to work on these areas. We still continue to partner with the banks to see how we can get them in to partner with the likes of AFEX and Babban Gona, where we have seen a lot of success in terms of repayment and increasing productivity. So yes, we are open to increasing and deepening discussions along these lines that you have raised. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Ord.
Thank you, Yvonne, for this interesting question. I'll give you a broad answer, but indeed the first good starting point is indeed to get the challenges, or to receive the challenges from the various stakeholders of the value chains, and then of course the World Bank is well placed to see how through its various programs help to improve the enabling environment for the business. Because then it contributes in a way to de-risk. So it's a good attraction for new investors to invest in the agriculture, which is too often considered as a too risky sector.
Thank you so much, Ord. I really want to encourage this conversation to continue in a sense, because I think there is plenty that can be done to continue to grow organizations like AFEX Nigeria and indeed Babban Gona. I am running short of time, But I do want to just very quickly identify a couple of things. Very often it is the case that organizations such as the World Bank, and I'm sure my colleagues would agree with me on this, have little sight of these organizations, the scale of their activities, the model, the viability of their business models, and indeed the numbers of farmers they are able to work with and the impact of those farmers. So there is a huge appetite on the part of the bank to address the asymmetry of information and indeed to make that more available so that the bank can play a much more engaged role. We have all seen real problems with the food system accelerated by the COVID pandemic and indeed by the recent events. There are some common themes that are arising in the presentations and in the discussion, which really allude to the concept of scaling your efforts to a broader, a continental basis, essentially. There's been a repeated discussion about how digital can change farmer profiles, how finance in relation to combining production systems and indeed markets to liberate opportunities for farmers to access finance, for the incredible work that both AFEX and Babban Gona do to connect farmers to this finance, including the support they need to have agricultural advisory, access to inputs, access to proper seeds, access to other digital solutions that reduce their risks and improve their efficiencies. There's been a bit of a theme that's occurred in the chat related to the questions about how women farmers are performing in the context of men farmers. And so I think there is more opportunity to share information about how you make that work, and we appreciate some of the responses in the chat. I think the big question on the table is the trust and the quality of these relationships, the opportunities that digital tools provide to create that transparency. And we recognize the roles of IFDC and particularly Maxwell's contributions in how farmers are building loyalty associated with that. So we do know there are real opportunities to scale these efforts, both to raise livelihoods for farmers, to address employment for youth, and indeed to strengthen our food sector in terms of the production of food on the continent. And we also heard tremendous replicability to these models. So we look forward to your success, Babban Gona, and indeed AFEX Nigeria, as we move through the next decade. I have absolutely run out of time, but I would like to just convey my appreciation very much to working with us to bring your stories to the World Bank and beyond. And we look forward to further opportunities to do so. Thank you so much to Akinyinka Akintunde from AFEX Nigeria, from Ubong Inyang, from Babban Gona, and indeed your teams who we've worked with. Very many thanks to Benedict Agbo from the Central Bank of Nigeria, and indeed to Aude Sauvé from the investment community, and also to say thank you very much to Maxwell from IFDC for providing Nairobi during lessons, and indeed very nice reflections on how digital tools actually can really enhance opportunities for our farmers. I think we've had a very stimulating discussion. Thank you so much for your attendance. To the participants. As mentioned, the webinar is recorded. It will be on the central repository of the Open Learning Campus and accessible to you. I really do encourage you to continue to talk to one another, and certainly to encourage the bank to play the role that we all think that it can. So thank you very much. Thank you to my colleagues for the thought around the tabling of the webinar.
Thank you.
Any last words? Thank you again.
Thank you.
I feel like everybody wants to stay for a bit longer.